Afternoon. I'm curious about, I've had this idea that our energy technology is reflective of our separation or connection with our vortex.
We agree.
So I see...
In fact, we would broaden it to say everything that is manifesting, whether it is political or religious or technology, everything that you see is that. It's a reflection of what's going on vibrationally.
So as I also have this curiosity of how Esther and Jerry ride their bus around the country and ride the oceans and continue sort of in a circular fashion.
It's actually more like a figure eight.
More like a figure eight. Creating sort of, like being here is different than listening to your tape. And somehow I see that this travel that they do is sort of like a Johnny Appleseed planting of seeds. People come here, they go out into the community, they stimulate, they have energy, things start moving, and collectively this constant churning has created something, a dynamic that is opening up, contributing to the opening up of a broader vortex.
In fact, it is the largest vibrational movement that has ever been. Yes.
Well, that sounds pretty good.
Well, we wanted it to sound good. But it's always true of where you stand out here on the leading edge. And so when you think about the generations that have been launching rockets into the vortex, and then you think about more people consciously, physically focused, moving into the vortex, and therefore allowing the movement that generations have been asking for, that's why the movement is so great. In other words, you don't need to hear this from us because your natural exposure to life will cause you to sift through contrast. You can't help it. And it will cause you to launch rockets of desire. You can't help that either. And Source will always ride the rocket of desire and will always hold steady to the vibration of the furthest expansion that you've reached for. And when you as individuals or as collective consciousness have your croaking or death experience, you'll reemerge into it, and the next generation is born from that expansive place. So the well-being is assured and the expansion is steady. But when we talk about a movement, we're talking about a time when more physical beings are deliberately reaching vibrational alignment with what's in their vortex so that they are experiencing the harmony of alignment pre-croaking. That's what's exhilarating. More people deliberately taking control of their flowing of energy.
Well, I'm interested in that pre-croaking experience. And so with this shifting of our relationship to energy technology, and I've heard you say previously that the result of all this economic thing that we've gone through, that we have 5 times more, I think you said,
in the escrow, yes.
That will be in the escrow.
Yes.
I see that this energy technology shift where we're able to utilize energy more clearly and directly and precisely and cleanly would be an opening towards that. Where in the world we've had so far, we've competed seemingly spending more money for less resource.
Well, we agree with everything that you're saying, and your premise is valid. But there is something that if you can integrate this into what you're already knowing, it will move you swiftly into a new place. There's always been energy technology. In other words, not so long ago, you were excited about steam and coal and oil. In other words, you are always finding a leading edge way to utilize resources. And the resources continue to expand exponentially in order to satisfy you. So you will never run out of resources, and you will never run out of energy, because energy is about thought vibration, and as long as you exist as thinkers, there will always be that, and it is always renewable. But in the physical manifestation, which is the way you're wanting to direct this conversation, the thing that keeps individuals or larger groups of collective consciousness from experiencing a faster and fuller benefit from energy that already exists in the vortex is the pushing against the status quo. In other words, it's the demonizing, the fossil fuel burning that is the biggest hindrance to the discovery of the new renewable energy. In other words, anytime you wage battle against what is, you hold yourself out of the vortex and you're not one of those inspired to the new ideas. If any of you who are leaning in those directions could just hear us when we say, if you could give up on your need to convince one other, to convince the government or to convince agencies, if you could just let go of your need to convince the others, you would find the technology in the vortex and it would be so vivid and doable that they could not ignore you. But what happens is, so almost every step along the way, you are looking back to see how you can convince them of something that they have so many axes to grind. There are so many reasons. There are lots of reasons that people are holding back. Part of it is ignorance. Part of it is they benefit more with it as it is. Part of it is they don't want to rock the boat in any significant way. Part of it is fear of the unknown. In other words, there is a lot of resistance about that. But if you could leave that out of the equation and just accept that you can't control it and don't need to, and you could just bounce into this place that is already there and get into the vortex where you can see clearly what is there. The conversation is the same about scientists who want to reach into new frontiers, but don't let themselves do it because they're so busy examining the details of the now reality. And you just can't look back and forward at the same time. And as you are examining the details of the current reality, which is full of wanted and unwanted, you water down your vibration and it keeps you from being a match to what's in the vortex. So we'll say it in one more clear way. So as an individual or as a collective consciousness or as generations of collective consciousness, you have launched into the vortex of creation a vivid vibrational escrow. Talk about renewable energy. In other words, if you could see it, it would thrill you and it would give you ease and sense of well-being and understanding that there is always another idea and it is readily available to you. So here's this vortex with all of this wonderful new technology in it. And here, let's say you are, and let's call you an entrepreneur or a scientist or someone who wants to be in on the development of this new technology. And there it all is, and really all you have to do is pet your cat and go in the vortex, have a massage and go in the vortex, have something good to eat and go in the vortex, see a good movie and go in the vortex, meditate and go in the vortex. In other words, all you got to do is get in the vortex. And with what you want and who you are, revelation after revelation after revelation would come to you. But so many people who could just go in the vortex and receive the clarity that's in there waiting for them, instead they examine what's going on and try to get those people to understand what's going on over here. And in their effort to get those people to understand what's going on over here, they have to come out of the vortex because those people aren't in the vortex. So they come out of the vortex to explain to them, and then they lose their connection. In other words, that's why every leading edge creator has been labeled by the majority as extremely weird. Because you have to hold yourself apart from the normal way of thinking, otherwise you don't have access to that which is new.
So I have ambition for weirdness.
Yes, you do. Ambition for weirdness and ambition for not giving a rip what anybody else thinks, and an ambition for understanding that you don't have to build comprehensive bridges between where you are to this new vortex. You just have to shine a light on what's over there, and it will manifest, and its reality will convince them.
Well, my interest has been keen in this area for a time, and I do see things tangible and real that will be apparent shortly to general population that will make a big difference. And where we'd have a world where we have more for less all the time. It will follow the computer paradigm where you will be able to receive more for less. And that will be a major catalyst for food and clean water and clean transportation. It would just be a huge boon for our economy and well-being of our planet. It's very exciting.
If this time-space reality has the wherewithal to inspire the idea within you, this time-space reality has the wherewithal to deliver the goods.
Well, that's very good. Thank you very much, and thank you for Jerry and Esther doing your figure eights around the country and delivering all this.
Well, you know, one of the things that Jerry and Esther enjoy the most, in other words, they are enjoying their travel, but what they really enjoy is this gathering. This gathering is the most exhilarating thing for them and for us, because this is where you bring your conscious physical awareness and you converge with your broader perspective and literally take thought beyond that which it has been before. And so to Jerry and Esther, often it feels like the same group moves from city to city, because many of you are up to speed, many of you are listening to the subscriptions. In other words, Esther was exhilarated, nearly dancing down the hallway just now, because she can't wait to go back and listen to some things. Jerry's notes are full of first. And Esther can hardly wait to go back and listen, because even though it may feel a little slow going, to nudge into places where you have not been before is big movement, you see. And so then you nudge into those places, and then by virtue of your repetition of thought around them, you make them the normal thought. Big gains are being made today. That's what you're experiencing in technology and in energy movement in general. In other words, the more you are able to step back and accept that this is a vibrational world, and the analogy that you were offering, we really think it's worth repeating, that the mechanical world was a wonderful world, but the digital world, you're using less energy and you're getting more done with it. The electronic world is far different from the mechanical world, and this electronic world that you're beginning to understand through your internets and through your computer chips, this technology that you are accepting as normal is so much closer to the vibrational reality that we are talking about. It's not far to move into this understanding that everything that exists, that you see as this knock-on-wood physical world around you, was pre-paved through the vibration of thought. And if you can just, even as a result of the conversations that we've had here today, if you can settle into the knowledge that if it became a thought, it has already become a reality. And as you accept it as a vibrational reality, then the step to the manifestational reality is the easiest step of all. The most difficult steps have all been taken. In other words, the contrast that made you ask was a much more difficult step. And the answering of it and the combining with law of attraction's response to it, that was an easy step. And the easiest step of all is the one still to be made, where you release your doubt and allow your belief. That's the easiest step at all. But what it requires is accepting that you are a vibrational being, accepting that this vibrational reality, that this vortex of creation exists, accepting that your emotions are real, accepting that your emotions are your indicator of your proximity to this vibrational reality, and a quest like nothing that you've ever felt before to be one who seeks the best feeling that you can find. In other words, if you let your emotions guide you, they will guide you right in to the answers, right in to the technology right into the manifestations that you are looking for. And the distance between where you are and where they are is the blink of an eye, really. It's just the shift of a vibration. So close.
Well, I accept all that, and I thank you very much.